Hello, I'm Joan Brown. It's my great pleasure to host this segment of the Marin Women's Hall of Fame show. Since 1987, the Hall of Fame has inducted over 150 women of distinction, women who have made immense contributions to the County of Marin and its residents, as well as to the world beyond. Honorees have distinguished themselves in many fields: education, science, business, philanthropy, the arts, politics, law, philosophy, religion. Each honoree has been a force for positive change in our community. It's a great privilege to acknowledge and document their contributions. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce Jean Berensmeier, who's being honored in 2023 for her pioneering work for community service. So welcome. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Can you begin by telling us about your childhood and your family?
Be happy to. I was born in 1932. Of course, that's the start of the Depression. My parents lived in Los Angeles. It was a tough time. My dad had difficulty getting work, so I was sent to live with my Serbo-Croatian grandparents in Ruth, Nevada, outside of Ely, next to the biggest copper pit in the world. I had the great privilege as a child there having the run of two things. I go out the front door, sit on the fence, and watch this enormous pit with trains coming around being filled with copper ore that went 8 miles to Ely. And then I go out the back door, and there were no children. So I had to, I didn't worry about that. I didn't even care. I didn't see any children. But what I saw out the back door were anthills. Oh my. I would go up to the anthill every day, usually the afternoon, and I'd watch ants. They were my instructors. They were my teachers. They never gave up. That was the big thing. They never gave up. And that has been a tenet in my life. Things I care about. If it's important, it helps people. It helps children. Then I run into that. You become a rock in a way.
Well, that's great. I love ants. So tell us a bit about the people in your life who inspired you and influenced you, taught you.
Oh, that's easy. The first would be my dad, Luka Lewis, Yugoslavian, of Serbo-Croatian stock. Daddy was my role model. Everywhere we moved, we'd meet neighbors. If they ever had a problem, the statement was, "Go see Lou," my dad. Mm-hmm. He'll know what to do. And Daddy could. He might not have seen the problem before, but he always figured it out. Mm-hmm. And Daddy was well known soon in the community, fixing something in the house, in the yard, in the car. Daddy was absolutely wonderful, and he was loved dearly. And I loved him and learned from what he did with people.
Did other people influence and inspire you?
Looking at my notes here, I would say Lee's dad was a great influence. And the thing about Lee's dad, every single weekend, he took my husband, his son, and his young daughter out in the out-of-doors. My dad never did that. We didn't do that in Nevada. The out-of-doors was right there. We didn't have to take somebody, but he did. He took them to the places in the southern coast, in the northern coast, and I had the privilege of going along at a certain point. So Lee and our dates were often with his dad, going somewhere, and those were truly adventures that I'll never forget and help me guide me in my life.
So you said that your dad moved around a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Why was that?
It was a depression. He was looking for work.
Aha.
Yeah, and work was not easy out of Los Angeles. He went to the Hetchy, mm-hmm. and he worked there as long as he could. Mm-hmm. And when that didn't pan out, then he did went into Nevada, Tonopah area. It was a difficult time to get work, and you had to be able to travel. Yeah.
And so then, was there a point where he was able to settle down in one place?
Yes, but that didn't come until World War II started. My dad was working in the mines, and in the evenings he was studying to be an electrician. When he got what he needed past that course in being an electrician, he moved our family from Ely, eastern Nevada, to Richmond, California. And Daddy got a job there, and the war broke out. And when the war broke out, Daddy was working on ships, Liberty ships, that we're going to see. And his big thing, my dad's big thing when the war was over, the last ship he worked on, Liberty ship, he decided to go on board as the key electrician. And he went around the world on the last Liberty ship. That was a big deal in the family.
Oh, yeah. That's great. That's great. So it's interesting to me that your dad was moving around during the Depression, following the work. And even when things were tough, he was still reaching out to people, and they were depending on him.
Oh, yes. That's a very good, correct observation. That was my dad. He cared about family, he cared about people in need, and he always seemed to have something that he could do to help. And that was his legacy to me, yeah.
Well, that's really interesting. That's making lemonade out of lemons, I think. So now I'd like to go a little bit deeper.
Okay.
And how would you describe yourself as a person?
Oh, how do I describe myself as a person? I love my family. My family's number one. Paul, and I only have one child. Paul is here watching, and my husband. I love my family, I think, first and foremost. And then I love the San Geronimo Valley. The San Geronimo Valley is absolutely right at the top with my family. It's
What year did you move to the San Geronimo Valley?
We moved there from San Francisco in 1962. Yeah, 1962.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to distract you. Did you want to say more?
No, that's fine. That is what I wanted to say.
Oh, good. Well, then we're on the same track.
We're on the same page.
Okay, so let's move into
your
your involvement and commitment with the San Geronimo Valley. So when we were talking before today, I had only known about your work as an ardent environmentalist and educator with the environment, and then learned, oh my goodness, you had a 36-year career as a professor of physical education at the College of San Mateo, and that you commuted. That was an interesting thing. So then in 1963...
Can I tell you a little bit about that?
Sure.
In my college career, I was a new kid on the block. And the men's department were men who primarily had gotten out of World War II.
You're talking about in the PE department.
In the physical education department at the College of San Mateo. And these are men whose background, very male-oriented. The war was over, they'd been through the war, they'd been in the service, and they had certain standards. And one of the things that I noticed as time went on and we got into the 60s and the late 60s, they had a difficult time dealing with younger men who had other ideas about what was needed in their country and in their community. And I was in the middle of that, and I supported the young men. One of the things, big things, wearing long hair. These guys out of the war got to be short. And I mean, that's a little thing. It was a big thing to them.
So I want to ask, you were there when this was going on. How did they adapt to a woman being a strong faculty member? Did you run into difficulties with that?
Oh, yeah. The male thing is to make their presence known. So one way they did that, to belittle the women, or me, was when we had division meetings. The division meeting was always on their side. They never had a chair for us. when we came over. So we had to stand during the meetings. This was absolutely deliberate. They knew we didn't like smoking, so they smoked in there. So this was the male way of dealing with it. One day, when the meeting was over, I left, and one of the men followed me across the from one side of the building to the other, and I was standing in front of the women's locker room. He came right up to me, and he got real close. The intention was to back me up against the wall. Mm-hmm. I refused to move. He got toe to toe, and he either was going to push me over or he's going to have to back off. He backed off. That was significant to me. That was significant.
How old were you at that point?
Oh.
Were you in your 20s?
Yeah, let's see. I was, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was young.
Uh-huh. Were there other women faculty in the PE
Oh,
department?
yes, but they were lesbians. The two that were the other staff were lesbians, which was a big, oh, geez. The men, wow. I mean, that was another thing. So here's Jean, innocent, really young, very wanting to teach fencing and wanting to bring weight training into the program. I had things I wanted to do because of what I'd been taught and what I enjoyed.
Right.
And
so
here I had these two
lesbians
lesbians, and then these men being out of world. It was, I mean, an education. I loved it.
So where did you grow your backbone? If the other women
Daddy.
didn't have it, your dad.
Oh, my dad.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
There was my son and I today, when we have a problem once in a while, we look at each other and immediately we'll say, "Didemind," which means think like my dad.
Oh, nice.
So it's a quick thing, right, Paul? Didemind.
That's great. So let's bring you back to San Geronimo Valley.
Okay.
So in 1968, you launched the effort to save the San Geronimo Community Center. I guess it was going to be demolished. And then in 72...
It was going to be demolished, that's right. And it had a fabulous 1930s mural, 15 feet long. They were going to destroy that mural. The children wouldn't be able to see it and learn a little history and beauty from that. I had to stop that, and I did.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you did. Then in 72, you helped to found the San Geronimo Valley Planning Group, and then in
Yes, because the San Geronimo Valley Planning Group was planned to have, what was it, Paul, 9,000 people and 5,000 homes, and they were going to be on the hillsides and on the ridges. That was a no-no for me.
So then in 2000, you founded the Wilderness Way with your son and your husband, which is an education group. So
environmental education.
Right. So I would like to know, and you've shared a little bit of that, what catapulted you to do that, and what your leadership style was when you were inspired by demolition and dramatic change, proposed dramatic change in the San Geronimo Valley. So my question is, you've been really effective. Why? How did you get others involved? What's your leadership?
You're asking a lot of questions there.
Well, pick one.
And I think to start with, I would think it would be important that how did I get started in that? Before I got this thing happened that I'll tell you about, I had been walking all the hills and ridges with my little son. I knew the valley inside out. My son knew every trail as I did. One day I went down to empty the garbage, and there were the two men at our water meter. And after I emptied the garbage, I just checked, and I said, hi. I said, "What are you doing?" And they said, "Oh, we're replacing these pipes." And I looked in there, and I said, "No, you're not replacing pipes. You're putting bigger ones in." And that's when he said the thing that changed my life. Yeah. "Oh, lady, we're going to have you're going to have houses on these uplands and on the ridges in this whole valley." They said it very positively. Yeah. And it was like, "They are?" And I just said, "How can I learn more about that?" And that's when they said, talk to Diet Stroh.
Yeah.
I love the name, Diet. I love names,
Yeah.
Diet Stroh. And he can tell you,
And he was with the...
He was the head manager of the Marin Municipal Water District. That was Diet Stroh. I called him, and he was very kind. And he saw I was serious. He spent over an hour with me telling me what a district was, who my supervisor was, and who I could talk to at the county. I went to the county, I got a map that showed what the development was going to be, which was horrendous. I hated it, and I got that map. And then they told me about this Gary Giacomini, who I knew from the school board. I didn't know he was going to be running as a candidate for supervisor. When I found that out, I connected with him, helped him in his campaign, and then after he got elected, I waited the right amount of time while we worked on a community plan, but I got then on the commission, the Parks and Recreation Commission, which was successful in getting Roy's Redwoods and so on.
Great. Yes.
Ta-da.
Developers have inspired a lot of environmentalists, that's for sure.
Yes, they have.
So you talked earlier about the powerful role that fencing played in your life and the valuable lessons that you got from your coach. So I'd like you to tell us a little bit about that whole experience.
I started fencing in the college from a German who taught the French style of fencing.
Was this when you were a student or when you were teaching?
I was a student in college.
Where?
San Francisco State College, yes. And I had heard about an evening class in fencing, which I was curious about. I didn't know anything about fencing. I took that class from Funke Degneff, was a German guy. He taught the French style. The French style is where you're in the middle of your body and you can go left or right to protect yourself. And so I learned the French style. Later on, when I met the Hungarian who defected, George Pilar, he was a three-time saber champion. I had the good luck of helping him move to San Francisco, and then I took lessons from him. Oh, I'll never forget the lessons. He liked my technique, French technique, but he didn't like some of my attacks or whatever. And I'd get on guard, and he'd get on guard, and I'd do something. If he didn't like it, wham, he'd hit my blade. And his favorite word, the one word he knew, zero. If it was bad, it was zero. And he'd say it with this, I loved him. Everybody just loved him. And what I learned, I sat as a coach next to a Hungarian. I said, I don't know what he's doing. Can you tell me what he's doing? And he did. He said, oh, he's teaching timing. Oh, okay. I was making my notes. Oh, he's teaching technique. Oh, timing, technique. He's teaching tactic. 3 T's, timing, technique, and tactic. And I've applied those things to my life and to my political work. Timing, technique, and tactic. From Pilar, 3 times world saber champion. How do you like that?
I love it. I love it. Were you a PE major in college? So when you went to college, you knew you wanted to teach PE?
No, I wanted to be a third grade school teacher like Mrs. Roeder. I wanted to be Mrs. Roeder. But I took that one evening fencing class.
Oh, and
I got hooked.
You got hooked.
Yeah, I got hooked.
Well, that's interesting. How accidental or incidental things become trajectories.
You're right. Good point.
In our lives. Okay, so you have a close relationship with your son. Tell us about that part of your life, and would love to hear some of your stories about any words of wisdom when he was growing up.
Paul was a 9.5-pound baby who didn't want to come out. That was an experience for a first time and only time. Wow. And 9.5-pound baby. And always curious. And like most like other children, running all the time. We moved, when I took him to the park in San Francisco, one day he was picking up spit, curious about spit on the sidewalk. He started opening up every car door as we walked, trying to open up every car door. Little guy. on the way to the park, I went home and I said, Lee, I told him, we got to move. Moved to Marin. We had a place, Lagunitas. We moved there. And when we moved to Marin, it changed everything. Most every day, I was on 60% time, but Paul and I would hike the ridges. He knew the ridges inside out and the trails together. And we have always had that close relationship our whole time. Yeah.
I remember some story about something through the kitchen window or something.
Oh.
I don't think it's in your notes. I think
yes.
I remember this from
I
one of our
designed my kitchen.
other conversations.
That's right. There's a sink and a window that looks into where the small dining area was. Well, from the time Paul was little, we had a little chair, and he'd stand on the chair and he'd stand in front of the window, and we talk. I'm washing or getting meal ready. He's standing on the chair right at the window. As he got older, he didn't need the chair, and we would talk. And one of the times I'll never forget, he came home from high school one time. He comes out to the window. We're talking as usual. There's a pause, and he says to me, "How do you always know the right thing to do?" That stopped me cold. My son thought his mother always knew the right thing to do. I had to think about that, but it didn't take long. And I said, 2 things, Paul. First, I think with my head. I have to make sure I understand what it's about. Make sure I haven't missed something. Ask questions. That's what Daddy said. Ask questions. And then the second thing Daddy said was listen. So you ask questions and you listen. So when I told that to Paul, I said, it's head, you think. When that's all done, think in the heart. And when you put the head and the heart together, I would know what to do. And that was my advice. Head and heart. If you're just heart, I'm tired of heart people sometimes. They can get absolutely a pain in the you-know-where. And other times it's like just head, that's not good enough. Yeah, it's got to be a blending of those 2 things.
Very good advice. Very good advice.
Okay.
So you've talked about your father being a mentor and a role model. Tell us what you've learned about mentorship and being a mentor yourself.
That's a hard one to answer. I never thought of myself as a mentor. I think that's probably right. I just don't think that way. Mm-hmm. What do I think about being a mentor? I think that anybody that is helping or doing good for others or for the environment, they're mentors. And it's just a fact. I guess I'm a mentor. I don't know what to say about that. I don't dwell on it.
Well, you have certainly led a community.
Yeah, I have.
And that's I'm guessing that you didn't do that alone, and so that there was probably some mentorship with helping people to learn how to get involved politically and strategically to help change the minds and convince decision makers to have things happen in a different direction.
I have to tap into something you said there, the mentorship. I think you're a mentor and maybe not know it. People look to you for help or for guidance or direction or to begin something, and I guess then you become a mentor for that. I don't think that way though. Mm-hmm. I think of things as there's an issue. Mm-hmm. What should I get involved? Mm-hmm. Do I need to do anything about that? And if it's about the environment or children, I'm going to get involved. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm answering that well.
So, what are your hopes for the community in San Geronimo Valley? What are there things that have not yet been addressed that you would like to have addressed?
Yes. During the last 3 years, we've had new people move, loving the valley, buying a home and living there, but they have no idea at all what it took to preserve a valley like that, so close to a metropolis area. And so one of the things that I think I want to help is to plan meetings or whatever, maybe a group of Lagunitas new homeowners, and invite them to a meeting and give them some of the history of how we became the valley that we are, why they were attracted, get them involved, why they were attracted to it, and then hit them with, you have a job to do here. You have to carry this forward. So what do you get off your duff and help preserve this.
Are there specific things that you're concerned about? Are there specific issues?
Yeah. Oh, there are several. When you come down into the valley from White's Hill, leaving Fairfax, you come down, you go around that big turn that all of us, when we go around that big turn, the valley opens up and you see the ridge. That portion is not protected. It's a wonderful former section, a former ranch, the Flanders Ranch. Spirit Rock is over there. But as you come around the first area, there's a big parcel of land owned by the school district, and that needs to be purchased by the county and protected as, call it agricultural open space, if we need to. Call it open space, but it needs to be protected, and no development.
So that's some unfinished business that you're still...
Well, there is one other thing. There's a stand of redwoods on San Geronimo Valley Drive that leads immediately to Woodacre when you get to the bottom of White's Hill, and that redwood stand needs to be protected.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you could, you've had such a rich life and made so much of a difference in the San Geronimo Valley, and I think the awareness of all of Marin County. If you had to choose one thing that you would consider your legacy, what might that be?
I'm concerned that we preserve the environment so children can go into the environment and enjoy it. That's a big thing with me.
The next generation.
Yeah, it's moving it on. And right now we have the Coast Miwok group that's getting very active, a Native American group whose parents and grandparents were born in Marin County. They're getting active. And we have opened up Wilderness Way, our building, for them to have meetings. We don't charge anything. Have your meetings, because they are teachers. They're teachers from the past, lifting up right now. And you'll hear more about the Coast Miwok in time to come.
That's great. So, do you have any regrets?
Peters Dam was built to create a lake, so we had water. What they forgot, and they are wrong in that, they forgot that the Tam watershed area was the home for salmon. And once the dam was built, the salmon couldn't get home. 5,000 salmon used to go into that watershed of Tamalpais, 5,000 salmon. And all of a sudden, they don't have any home. They couldn't get up there. That was a big, fat mistake. They, what could I have done? I don't know. But we had the technology to do something. We could have done something, but nobody cared enough. They wanted to build houses and have water for the houses.
So when that was built, were there
50s?
There were no environmentalists who were aware or who were influential, or was it that it was proposed?
There was remember, this is in the San Geronimo Valley. Wonderful organizations that I was a president of and been a member of ever since, Marin Conservation League. They had issues on the Eastern Urbanites Corridor.
Right.
They weren't really looking at the issues there. Not that they might not care.
So it wasn't that there was advocacy and it was turned down. It was that it moved forward without citizen participation.
Yeah, pretty much.
So do you have any unfinished business?
Oh, did I write on unfinished business?
Yes.
Yes. My unfinished business, I want to be sure that Dennis Rodoni is reelected.
Well, that's a
So
good
that's
plug.
that's a big one. I got a little thing out there. He'll be happy about that.
He's on the Board of Supervisors.
Oh, yeah, and a good one.
represents
Oh, yeah.
West Marin. Okay.
And he's in that capacity, I have to say, he paid attention to what people need. He's the only one that started having meetings in this community. Now, he's got a big district. He's got to go all over the place. That takes time. And he does it. He plans the meetings. He listens to what people are saying. And I think he's a dear friend. And but now I want to make sure that he takes action and purchases that parcel of land just at the bottom of White's Hill that is owned by the school district, and we got to preserve that so it's not developed or whatever. So and the other thing I want to be sure, and I told him, there is a stretch of redwoods along San Geronimo Valley Drive that you don't see going to Woodacre, and that redwood strip needs to be protected.
Great.
So those are a couple things.
And they're great things, and I want to end on, tell me about your necklaces.
Oh, these are madrone berry necklaces. You have one right
Yes,
there.
I was just gifted
and,
this.
and
Thank
so does
you so
everyone
much.
that that's around here. These, when my son and I walked the ridges, one day we discovered Roy's Redwoods. I didn't know it was called Roy's Redwoods. There's a bunch of cows there, and we walked down along a deer trail, walked around one big redwood tree. When we got around it, had an opening. It was a big room inside, and these were on the floor. These berries, I found out what they were, and I found out how easily you could string them. And so every year, my son and now his wife, I get 2 jars of these berries, Christmas Eve, and Christmas Day. I make necklaces.
You make them on Christmas Day?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And did you share what kind of berries they are?
Madrone.
Madrone
These
berries.
are madrone berries.
And
oh,
are
yes.
they only in that secret place, or are they
no.
other places?
No, they're all over.
Okay.
Yeah, madrone, they have a wonderful history. But the big thing for me is that when the berries time, they drop the berries on the ground at the end October, November generally, and that's when it's collecting time. And we've had children make necklaces
Well, I'm
to
thinking
take
this
home.
would be a great project for me with my granddaughters.
Oh, yes, yes.
So, Jean, you've just been amazing. I love your stories. I've loved our conversation. I know that the viewers have too. Thank you so much for sharing at such a wonderful level. And thank you to our viewers for tuning in. The Marin Women's Hall of Fame is a program of the YWCA Golden Gate Silicon Valley. If you would like to learn more about the Hall of Fame and our honorees, please visit www.yourywca.org. Thank you so much.